Slide. This is Michelle Batten. Well, she calls herself the Dig Chick, running her machine across the mound. As you can imagine, the ground penetrating radar impulses coming from different directions as you go over the flat ground around the mound and over the surface of the mound need to be adjusted for the angle of that machine with the computer doing that. Next slide. Next picture. I would say that what we identified we found the pit that the people had dug in 1954, and we got a really strong ping from that lead-wrapped plexiglass tube. Not much question about that. We also identified a series of areas around the outside of the mound where ground-penetrating radar indicated there had been some degree of disturbance from probably laying down the sidewalks in that quadrant. We also identified a number of areas at the base of the mound that appeared to represent a structure or a series of large posts that had been built into a circle before the mound had been constructed. So what we were able to identify is that the mound was not a burial mound. There were no burials in it. There were no areas of huge ceremonial offerings, but the mound itself had been built to commemorate some ceremonial activities that had taken place either in or around some sort of circular structure.
With Dr. Brose mentioning here that the questions that we were able to answer is what is under the mound and how has the area around it been used? And right. As Dr. Brose mentioned, it did answer a number of questions that had been posed by the public as to, is this a burial area? And so the answer is no. Are there large areas of buried structures under here? And again, the answer was no. But it does appear that there's evidence of it used for ceremonial purposes. And also, Dr. Brose, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the age of the mound goes back to almost maybe 1,000 years.
There have been a number of sites like this excavated in other parts of southern Michigan. And radiocarbon dating on the wood, they've been dug up, not just identified by radar, although some of them have had both techniques used. The wood that's dated generally falls in the period between around 700 or 800 AD and 1200 AD. This episode of warmer climate when agriculture is just coming in and a shift in ceremonial activity takes place. Burial mounds don't seem to be built after that in this part of the country. So you were correct. It is about 1,000 years old.
So with that, kind of the focus of the committee began to change.
Yes.
Into how do we do appropriate education regarding the mound and its history and the people who used it. And part of that was to take a look at 4 quadrants.
For the Anishinaabe in this area, those teachings are in relation to our 4 sacred medicines. And this diagram that you see up here conveys that Samo, which is tobacco. And we have this, so I'm looking at it different, eastern direction for that tobacco and southern direction. My teaching is the cedar is in the south and the sage is in the western direction and the sweetgrass is the northern direction. So these are life teachings that are passed down through storytelling, through example to our young people. They, for many people, they learn these things through their life, during their life journey. And many of them don't become reacquainted with them themselves until maybe they're adults or they're older. But it's just an example of how unique our cultures are, no matter who or where. But for Southwest Michigan, we're looking at the Anishinaabe here, Anishinaabeg or Anishinaabeg, and that we had thrived and survived here, that we're resilient, that we're still here, and that this information we want to share, we want to preserve.